তোমার যেখানে তুমি পলিটিক্যাল তোমার বক্তব্য নিশ্চয়ই থাকবে, আই এম নট এগেইনস্ট দ্যাট, বাট you show this your statements, your opinions over there. Don't show this in the class. This is not the right forum to do it. Anyway, so let us start today's class, and we know that in today's class we will be discussing the new chapter, and this new chapter is basically called the work, energy and power. This concept is not new to you. You must have studied it well in your school days. So we will quickly brush up the required theory, and then we will move on to our basic the problem. So we see that this is the thing. So we will touch here three concepts. One is called the work, then another is termed as the energy, and then finally we have to deal with the power. So we start. This thing is of course particle related. So engineering dynamics means that we are studying the particle dynamics. So we are doing like that. So we see that this is basically a particle. Suppose we consider a mass particle which is moving along a curvilinear path. Now curvilinear path, this is a curvilinear path. I could have taken this to be a rectilinear path as well, but rectilinear case could have been the more specific case. So that's why we take up the more general situation, and that more general situation is this curvilinear path. So let us suppose that this particle is moving along the curvilinear path under the action of several external forces, and let us consider that your F bar, that represents the vector sum of all the external forces which are acting on this particle. Correct? Let us say this force is F bar. Now since this particle is moving under the action of this set of external forces, the particle is having an acceleration. Naturally that acceleration will be directed along this force vector, so in this manner. So this way the acceleration will be directed. It will be along the line of the force vector F bar. So this will be your the acceleration vector. So that we see here something like this. Now this acceleration vector can be resolved into two components, one along the what is called along the tangential direction, one along the tangential direction and another along the normal direction. So these are your two components, and we see that this will be equivalent to, this is equal to ma bar t in the tangential direction, and another will be along the normal direction. So if I say if I apply basically the Newton's second law of motion to this case, we can write from here that the summation F bar is equal to apply Newton's second law. We say that summation F bar, I mean to say, which is which is here represented by only F bar, which shows the resultant of all the external forces. This means it should be equal to ma bar, and we know that this we can write it as m into at, the tangential acceleration, times the unit vector along the tangent direction, and then we have this m into an, which is Newton's law. Now we So suppose in that way, if I consider that ds bar represents a differentially small displacement of the particle under the action of this resultant of all these external forces. So if I consider that, in the we say that there will be the work done by this force, and the work done will be given by what? So we can say that work done by the work done by this force dF bar F bar. So we see that the work done by this force F bar, we can write work done by F bar is equal to what? We can say that this is equal to, we can write this is equal to, we can say, we represent this work done, work function, we represent this work function in this manner that it is equal to, suppose we can write it in this, we can say this is du. Du is work done by the force F bar due to, we should write complete this sentence, due to the displacement, due to, we can say that displacement ds bar. So ds bar, because of this displacement we have this work done, and this work done can be represented as, by definition, it is the dot product between these two vectors. So you have the force vector, which is the resultant of all the external forces, and under the action of this resultant of external forces we have this displacement vector ds bar. So we say that this is the work done and it is equal to F bar dot ds bar. Now we can say that, you see, if you consider that this ds bar, correct, it is for a differentially small displacement along the length of the curve, we know that this actually will be aligned in the limiting condition. The chord will take up the tangent, so will become tangent. So in that way we can say that this differentially small displacement is actually in the tangential direction to this curve path. So thus we can write this F bar, in place of F bar I can say that it is Newton's equation. So I just apply, it is mat u cap t plus man u cap n, these are the tangent and normal components, dot, it is the dot product of the displacement vector, and displacement vector we know that this is tangential, so I can therefore say that it is ds times u cap t. Now here mat, man and ds, all these are scalar quantities. So if we follow the dot product rule of the vectors, two vectors, we can say that the work done by this force F bar due to this differentially small displacement, I can write that this should be equal to m into at dot ds, because it is because of the fact, why I have not written the other terms, it is firstly it is because of the fact that u cap t dot u cap t, dot product of these two vectors, this is equal to 1, and due to the fact that u cap t dot u cap n, right, the dot product between these two normal vectors is equal to 0. So that's why I can simply write this equation in this manner. Now as far as at is concerned, we know that what is at from our knowledge. We know that at can be written as to be equal to dv dt, the magnitude. At can be written as this, or it can be written as d2s dt2, or we can write it as v into dvds. Now out of these three alternative equations for at, we just choose this one. In fact it is not ds, x we write, it is ds. So so we say that we choose this last definition, and I can write that at ds, so it can be seen from here that we can say that AT ds, we can write it in this way, that AT into ds will be equal to AT into ds will be equal to V dV, correct? And this V dV again can be written as half of d of V square. So therefore we find that in place of this AT ds, we can write this to be as half of d of V square. So we can say from here that the work done by these all external forces which are acting on the particle, which is, remember F bar, I said that F bar is the resultant of all external forces. So I say therefore that it should be equal to m into d of half V square. Now this m being a scalar and it is constant, it is of constant mass, so it is basically constant. So I can thus take this m inside this bracketed term and can write that du, that is the work done, so that becomes equal to d of half of mv square. So you see this half mv square, this we need to define this term. What is this term? From our knowledge of physics, we know that this half mv square is called the kinetic energy, or the energy, that means the ability to do the work possessed by any particle or any body because of its motion. We call this to be the kinetic energy. Because of its velocity, it has certain ability to perform the work, and thus it has some sort of energy, and we call this as the kinetic energy. And in this case we define the kinetic energy by the symbol capital T. So capital T, don't get confused with this capital T here, it stands for tangential direction, but we define this symbol called capital T, which is termed as the kinetic energy. So in that way we can say therefore that du, that becomes equal to dt. So this is our the basic work equation, work energy equation. We say that we call this is a work energy equation because this is the work done, right? Work function, u is called work function and t is called kinetic energy. So the differential of the work function is equal to the differential change of kinetic energy. So that is basically termed as our basic work energy equation. This is the work and this is energy, both are equivalent, work energy equivalence relation. So we can write this as work, I write it in abbreviated form, W hyphen E, work energy equivalence relation. We call this work energy equivalence relation in differential form. So we term this in this manner. So in differential form. So it is written in this way. Correct. Now once I say that this is our the basic work energy equation, we like to integrate this equation between the two finite positions of the particle. So coming back to this figure, let us suppose that this point on the curve, we call this is position 1, or we call this as the initial position of the particle. And let us suppose I take another position on the curve and I mark it as 2. I call this is final position. It may not be truly final position of the particle. It means that the particle may further travel along the curve. But so far as this limit is concerned, I call this as the initial position and I call this as the final position. And I define the work by the work function. So I need to define the work function. You remember, this is your work function and this is your definition, that du is equal to f bar dot ds bar. So if I take this differential form and integrate it between these two finite positions. I write that in this way, since we know that du is equal to, since we say du that is equal to f bar dot ds bar, I can write it in this manner, that in the integrated form we can say that integration du, right, between the points 1 and point 2, the initial point and the final point, is basically equal to integration from S1 to S2, right, S1 to S2 f bar dot ds bar. So it means that, it essentially means that your f bar, that means the resultant of all the external forces, must be expressed as some kind of function. That means we take the magnitude of this. Scalarly we can write, scalarly we can say f bar can be represented as f of s, where s represents the what is called as the path arc length of the curve. That means, say I can have the, say I may have a reference point here, and measured from that reference point, this position we may call this as S1, and this position we call this, you know, this position here along the, this is not the straight line, you should see that it must be along this, measured along this curve, and the arc length for this point we call this as to be S2. So thus I can say from here that we get, this is our equation. Now since, you know, this actually depends upon this integration, you can understand this is called line integration. If you see your mathematics course, we will call this as the line integral. Now the line integral actually depends upon the line along which we are doing this integration. If we change the line between the two state points, that means instead of choosing this curved path, if I choose another, you know, curved path which goes through these two positions, initial position and the final position, something like that, then we see that this work basically, you know, it depends upon this path being selected. So that's why it is called path dependent integral. That means this entire integration is becoming path dependent integral, and therefore it cannot be expressed in the exact form, right? It cannot be expressed in the exact form. So as a result, it is called inexact thing, and we write this as this integration. If we perform, then we write that as 1u2. You may have studied your basic thermodynamics course to find that the heat and the work are the, you know, the path variables. They depend upon the path in which we take this position. So that's why it is written as 1u2. It's not written as u2 minus u1, because it is basically path dependent one. So we cannot express it in the exact form. So I write it as 1u2, and since we know that this is equal to, if we just see this relationship, this is equal to integration dt from the state point 1. So in state point 1, the initial kinetic energy is T1 and the final kinetic energy is T2. What it says is that T1 actually becomes equal to half m v1 square, where v1 is the magnitude of the velocity of the particle at state point 1, and T2 is another, you know, this we can write it as half mv2 square, which we say that this is equal to the magnitude of the velocity at state point 2. So I write in this manner, and we see that since these are directly related to the position, so I say this is the position integral and it is exact, and therefore we can express this in our normal way of expressing the definite integral result, and we say that our 1u2 is basically written as T2 minus T1 or we can say that this represents delta T. So this is what is called as the integrated form of our work energy equation. Please note, this is the differential form in the differential form, and this represents our work energy equivalence. Again, this represents the WE equivalence relation. So again, this is WE equivalence relation, but this time equivalence relation, but this time you see that it is based on integrated form, relation in integrated form. That's the thing that we are getting. This is what we are getting from here. So stated in other words, we see that this is also known as the work energy fundamental principle. So what it says that in words it says like that. It says that the the work done by the external forces, the resultant external forces, we can say it to be the resultant work done, because if you see F bar dot ds, if ds bar, if you just see that expression carefully, this is F bar dot ds bar, and you know that F bar is nothing but summation F bar. That means individual forces which are acting on the particle, that is being represented by this dot ds bar, correct? So every force is having this displacement. So in fact, I can write this as summation of F bar dot ds bar, because each individual force line of action will have this displacement. So essentially F bar dot ds bar, which is the resultant work done by the resultant force, work done by the resultant force is basically equal to the resultant of the work done by the component forces. So it is seen from here. So I can therefore say that this is basically equal to du. So this is basically equal to du. So it states therefore that the resultant work done by all the external forces acting on the particle between the two state point positions is basically equal to the change in kinetic energy of that particle between those two positions. So I need to integrate, depending upon the relationship, how your forces are expressed as function of the position. We see therefore that we can express this integral, find this integral and equate it to the change in kinetic energy of the particle, and thereby we can solve our problem. So this is what is known as the principle of work energy in kinetics. Actually, there is a difference in Newton's method with this method. You see, this method actually comes from Newton's principle, because we have here applied this Newton's equation here. So it is being derived from the second law of Newton's, second law of motion. But what we see that this has got certain advantages. Actually, this principle of work energy can be applied to those class of problems where if I know that the forces which are acting on the particle are functions of positions, or at least they are constants in magnitude. That means your F bar can be function of the position variable, or at least the forces may be constant. So under such circumstances, we can alternative to applying the Newton's law method, I can go for the work energy principle, especially for those problems where forces are functions of positions or constants, and one of the unknown quantities is the kinetic, one of the unknown quantities is to know the velocity of the particle at a certain position. So under this class of problems, we can avoid Newton's method and can apply this work energy principle. Now the question may be, what is the advantage of that? Now the advantage of doing this is that, you see, if you carefully look at this, you know that when I have divided into these components, I say that this is the sum of all external forces. In fact, I have underlined the word called all. That means you need to draw your free body diagram, show all your forces which are acting on the particle. Now, actually what happens among those several forces which are acting on the particle, there can be some forces. You see, there may exist a group of forces whose sense or direction should be such that it is perpendicular to the displacement vector of the particle. So it is perpendicular to it. That means I know that this displacement is along the tangent direction and your force is acting normal to it. So it is somewhat normal forces. For example, normal reactions. Now since we have a 90-degree angle between these two forces, two vectors, sorry, I see that the work done by such group of forces becomes simply equal to 0. So there is no work done by all the group of forces which are acting in the normal direction to the displacement of the particle. So you see, for example, the normal reactions. Suppose you have the instance where you have a box being placed on a plane like this, and you are having some force which may be acting on the box like this, right? And I need to calculate the velocity of this box. Now, if I am to show the Newton's method, then I need to draw the free body diagram of this box represented as a particle and show all the forces. For example, here you have the weight, you have the normal reaction, and then you have the force. So you need to take all these into account and then solve your problem, correct? But or there may be some friction also. There may be some friction. So there may be some friction force also acting in the particle, something like this. So you see that when you are actually solving this problem by Newton's method, you need to take into account all your forces, But in case of the work energy equation, we note that I may eliminate these forces because they are normal to the displacement of the particle and thereby contributing no work. They are called the reactive forces because they do not contribute into the work energy equation. So I can erase these forces, the reactive forces. I can erase them out from my free body diagram, and thereby I draw only the active forces which are acting on the particle. That means only show those forces which are having some work function. So therefore, this type of diagram is termed as AFD. This is called active force diagram. We can say this is active force diagram. Show only the active forces. That means only show those forces which are contributing, which are actually doing some work. So only show those forces and call this as your active force. Call this as the active force diagram. Correct? So this active force diagram basically is a subset of the FBD. We can say that AFD, the active force diagram, is a subset of FBD. So always there is a chance that in AFD we'll have to deal with less number of forces than actually we would have to do had we taken the complete free body diagram and had we gone for Newton's method. So therefore, the work energy relation or work energy principle provides a distinct advantage over this Newton's method. That is number one. So we see here out in the group of the reactive forces, that means those who are not contributing to this work function, first they in the group we have the category which are called all normal forces acting on the particle. Normal means those forces which are, perpendicular to the displacement of the particle. Second, we may have some stationary forces. Some stationary forces, particularly those which are related with the reactions offered by the supports, immovable supports. Stationary forces, that means we can say the reaction forces related with stationary supports, related with stationary supports. That means those supports which are not movable, immovable, or we can say immovable supports. That means those which cannot be moved. So under such cases, since your supports. So under such cases, we find that since these reaction forces are related with those immovable supports, they are not having any kind of displacement. As a result, we say that the work done by such forces also is zero because they don't have any displacement. So as a result, we find that these normal and stationary forces, they come under the reactive forces, and we will see when we will go into the discussion of dynamics of rigid bodies after the second half, in the after finishing this particle dynamics. When we will have to study the dynamics of rigid bodies, we may come across other type of reactive forces other than these two. Correct? We will see the occasion where we may have more reactive forces in the category. So more will be this number, less will be the chance that we will be having lesser number of active forces to be present in the AFD, and more attractive will be my method because I have to deal with lesser number of the forces are acting on a rigid body. We will see that in case of rigid body, we will see it later. So therefore, in the work energy to draw is the AFD, show only the active forces and then contribute the work from there, calculate your work function from there. So that is number one. Number two is of course known to you, but still I just for completeness I just mention it here, that since our work function is basically being given by this relation F bar dot ds bar, we may have, depending upon the vectors between these two, that means you can have, this is your force vector and you can have, this is your displacement vector. Now depending upon the angle between these two vectors, that means the angle here theta, depending upon this angle, this result can be positive when theta is greater than 0 and less than 90 degree. We know that this will be a positive number. It will be equal to 0 when theta becomes equal to 90 degree. We have already discussed this case. And it may be less than 0, it may be the less than 0 when you see that your theta is more than pi by 2, but of course less than pi, or you can have that thing. So we see therefore that under such circumstances, this is especially the case when your displacement is in this direction and your force is in this direction. This is your F bar and this is your ds bar. Now since this angle theta is an obtuse angle, obviously the dot product between these two will be a negative number. It is going to be less than 0. It means that your force and the displacement, the component of the force which is along the displacement direction, we see that the component of the force, that means if I take this component which is along this displacement. This is only contributing the work, because this component being perpendicular to the direction of your displacement is not contributing anything. So you only have this tangential component, or the component which is along the displacement vector. It is only contributing this work, and since these two are acting in the opposite directions, we see that our work becomes negative. Particularly this will be the case in this example if we take the friction force into account, because if this is the displacement direction, then this must be friction force. So the work done by the friction force will be therefore always a negative quantity. So this, are the basic things, basic concepts of your work function. And in the SI system, because we are dealing with the SI system, in SI units, so we can say in SI units, the work is having the unit called joule, right? It is abbreviated as like this, or it may be expressed as kilojoule, or it may be expressed as megajoule, gigajoule, etc. But normally these are not very commonly used units in our dynamics. They may be used in thermodynamics, of course. Megajoule, gigajoule, you will find.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. In case of thermodynamics, these units will be more popular. But in mechanics, solid mechanics, we are only, happy expressing our unit in joule or in at the most in kilojoule format. And similarly, the kinetic energy, because energy and work are equivalent concepts, as you know from your knowledge of school physics. Therefore, our kinetic energy must also having the unit called joule. Now, at this point, this is the basic thing of your concept of the work function. Now, at this point, let me introduce the concept of power. So basically, power is related with the rate of work done, right? So power, we can call it to be the rate of work done by a force. Power developed by a force is basically the rate of work done by the force, correct? That is actually, given by power. So we see therefore, since you know that your work function, as you know, is called du. You see, this is du. So the rate of work done means you need to differentiate it with respect to time. The rate of change of this, we call this as the power. So power P. Now, if you remember what is du, if you just say what is called du, so in that case we can write, in place of du, we can say that this is equal to, in place of this, we can say that, this du is nothing but f bar dot ds bar. This is our du vector. And this becomes, if I divide it by differential, the scalar, that means I can write this as, this is our power P. I can write it in this manner, that it is basically equal to, because you remember this is a scalar quantity, so I can write this as f bar dot ds bar dt. So this, if I write it in this format, then ds bar dt represents what? It represents the velocity of the particle. So ultimately, thus what I see therefore, that the power developed by a force is actually equal to the force vector associated with the velocity vector. So that defines a power. It is instantaneous relationship and it is a scalar quantity. This is also a scalar quantity. So all these are basically the scalar quantities. So this is our scalar quantity, power f bar dot v bar. And what is the unit for this in SI system? It is joule per second, or we call this as watt, right? We express it in W, and the more commonly used units in dynamics will be watt and kilowatt, though you have the unit of power in megawatt, gigawatt, etc. In that way also, for general discussion of this work energy that is highly correlated with the thermodynamics, it is having very close interrelationship with thermodynamics. So especially the first law and second law. So you see that those units of megawatt, gigawatt, they will be more common in that branch. So this is our power. Now, if you open up the Merriam-Craig book, you will find that the work, energy and power, this particular principle is actually covered in two separate chapters. This is the content of chapter 1 and then we have content of chapter 2. But we will not differentiate between these two chapters and I will combine this as an integral approach. So therefore, for us, the problems will be both from chapter 1 and chapter 2 and we can follow a unified method of doing our analysis. Firstly, you need to understand that so far as we have developed our basic work energy relationship in the differential form like this, du equal to dt, and in the integrated form like this where it is written in this manner. Now, before going further, we introduce, and by this time we have also introduced the concept of kinetic energy, which we said that this is the energy possessed by a moving body because of its motion. Now, before proceeding further, we introduce another concept which is known as the potential energy. Because without that, our description will not be complete. So we say it is the potential energy. Now, what is this energy called? Potential energy. Now, potential energy of a body is basically the energy possessed by a body because of its own configuration. For example, kinetic energy will not be possessed by a body until and unless that body is in motion. That means when a body is in motion, then only it is having kinetic energy. So if a body is at condition of rest, obviously kinetic energy is zero. But potential energy is irrespective of the fact whether your body is in motion or whether your body is at condition of rest, because it states that it is the energy possessed because of its configuration. For example, I always give this example when I used to take the physical classes while explaining the potential energy. You take a piece of brick. Now place the brick on the road and you know that brick has no ability to harm a person. Now take that same brick to the roof of the mechanical engineering building and then allow the brick to fall down on the head of a person like me. Okay? So in order to eliminate your miseries in the tests and exams, you want to eliminate myself. So I am coming to the department and all of you are taking a brick on the roof of the mechanical engineering building and allow it to drop on my head. What will happen? That brick, same brick, which was there earlier on the road, was not able to do any harm. But when it is now taken from the height and then allowed to fall, you see that brick has got tremendous ability to damage my head, even to kill me. So therefore, you see that the same brick possesses two different types of energies. When it is on the road, it does not have any kind of that form. But when it is taken on a certain height, because of its configuration, it stores some energy, and now that energy is being recovered when it is falling on my head. So therefore, you see that defines what is termed as one type of potential energy. In fact, the potential energy can be classified into two groups. The first one, we call this to be as the gravitational potential energy. We call this as gravitational potential energy. And the other one is termed as the elastic potential energy. Okay? Now, this gravitational potential energy again depends upon the fact, that whether it is actually the height of the body, correct? Height of the body as measured from a reference level. Now, this height, depending upon whether this height is smaller than the radius of the earth, it is smaller than the radius of the earth. If we assume that this is called near earth situation, for then the potential energy is defined as some way, and if this height is comparable to the radius of the earth, particularly when you have the motion of space vehicles called satellites, etc., their height is comparable to the radius of the earth, even more than that actually. You see, in that case the potential energy will take some other definition. Now, since at this stage we are not going to discuss of those things, let us confine ourselves to the case where we have our height which are much less than the radius of the earth. Now this is case A, right? And case B will be that situation. Now if our height of the body is much less than the radius of the earth, we call this as the near earth situation. And for that case, we consider the horizontal surface of the earth. There is no surface called horizontal surface on the earth because earth is a curved piece of thing. But anyway, we can consider, for a shorter description, we can consider that we have a flat surface. At least within my perception, I definitely have some flat surface. So I call this as a flat surface, the surface of the earth or the ground, and I call this as our reference level, or sometimes it is also known as the datum level. Right? This is also called as the datum level. And we define that when a body is on the surface of the earth like this, when it is on the surface of the earth, we have, suppose we have a body on the surface of the earth. In this case, we say that its potential energy is 0. This we arbitrarily assign this 0 value when the body is on the reference level. Correct? And this reference level, we agree to take it to be the reference surface on the earth and say this is 0. And if that body is taken above the surface of the earth like this, we have the height h, and because of this height, because of this configuration, the body possesses the potential energy. How much is this? This should be plus mgh. This is the gravitational potential energy of the particle, and we define it by the symbol Vg. V is actually, it is coming from the potential concept, electric potential concept. So that's why the voltage basically. So to have that similarity, we call this, define this symbol by capital V. Capital V defines the potential energy in our dynamics course, and subscript G will refer that this is basically the gravitational potential energy. Had this particle been taken below the surface of the reference level, so if this is our reference level, then we say this is negative h, and the potential energy that is being stored within the body at this position will be basically equal to minus m into g into h. So this is the case. So this is how we define the potential energy, gravitational potential energy, to the case where we have the height is much less than, these heights are much less than the radius of the earth. So that is number one. Number two, you see, before going to the number two case, let me now see if we have on the body, if a body is is moving, suppose let's consider the body is moving along a vertical plane. So we move on to our next page and assume that there is a vertical plane. So vertical plane means I show this acceleration due to gravity in this manner. This indicates that this plane of this khata or the board or the screen is the vertical plane. Now let us suppose that I have a particle here, and that particle is taken above, on the curved path. From position 1, it is being taken to position 2. Okay, and suppose this is our, suppose this is our, we call this is the surface of the earth. This is the surface of the earth. Okay, so it indicates that this is the position. We call this as H1 above. This is the position. We call this as H2 above. Right? And this is suppose the intermediate position. Say this is at a height of y above the surface of the earth. So this is our Vg equal to 0 surface, 0 potential surface. So in that case, you see here at this point, at this location, if you see, the force that is acting on the particle will be in this direction. So that is its weight, capital W. So when I am taking this particle from this position to this position, the work is done by this weight. So how much is the work done? Obviously, we see that if I call this work done by the gravity force, call this is DUG. G stands for that it is the work done by the gravity force, becomes equal to minus W into dy, or we can say this is minus mg into dy. Why it is minus? It is because the weight is acting downward and my displacement is in the upward direction. So that's why we have minus. If it had been taken from this to this, if you are lowering, then this would have been plus, because your displacement is in the negative direction. Because if you want to measure your displacement from the top, then your everything will be in the same. So in that case, it should have been plus. But since our all positions are measured from here only, so I have, this is the thing. So defining the total work done, if I take the position of the particle from position 1 to position 2, the total work done by the gravity force 1u2, I can write 1u2g is basically equal to minus mg into, if I integrate it between the positions h1 to h2, so it becomes equal to minus mg h2 into h1. Now here h2 is more than this, so it means it is minus mg h2. I can write it in this way, minus of, minus mg h1. We write it in this manner. So you see that this we can say, this minus mg h2. So we can write it in this way. So it is mg h2 minus h1. So I can take, or what I can do is this, something like this, instead of say not writing, instead of writing it in this format, instead of writing it in this format, I can write it in this way also. I can say this is minus, I can write it this way, mgh2 minus, it is how much? mgh1. Correct? I can write it in this manner. Or I can say, yes, I can say that this is Vg2 minus Vg1, because you remember Vg1 is what? This is plus mgh1, and Vg2 is also, it is equal to plus mgh2. So we define it in this manner. So it therefore shows that, what it shows? It shows that 1u2, right? This will become equal to minus delta Vg. I can write it in this manner. So the work done by the gravitational force, you see this is, 1u2g, right? This is 1u2g. 1u2g comes out to be minus change of gravitational potential energy. So we see this way. Now exactly the same thing you would have got had the particle been taken down from the position 2 to position 1, then also you would have come to this expression. I just ask you to verify it at your home by yourself. So ultimately, হ্যাঁ বলো, কিছু বলবে?
বললাম ওকে স্যার।
Okay, okay. So we can therefore say that this is the work done by your gravity force, right? And of course you need to remember we are dealing with the case when your height is much less than the radius of the earth. Now I go to the next form, that is called the elastic potential energy. Now the elastic potential energy again will be the energy possessed by an elastic member. Now what is an elastic member? We can consider a spring. We can consider a spring that is an elastic member, and particularly we are considering, actually springs can be defined in two ways. One is called the linear spring, which is also known as Hookean spring. These are called Hookean springs. And you may have what is called non-linear spring, which again can be classified into two groups. One is called hardening spring, and another one is termed as the softening spring. So linear spring means that the force acting on the spring F and the extension or compression of the spring delta, they are related by this equation. This is called the linear relationship between force and the extension of the spring or compression of the spring. What I mean to say by this is that suppose if you have a spring here, this is say a spring like this. Now this may be considered as the natural length of the spring. That means this is called undeformed length of the spring, L naught. Now because of the application of the force, right, your spring can elongate. That means when you are particularly having a force, say acting this way, then you see that the length of the spring increases. And how much is this length? The length is now becoming equal to your this thing. Say this, I call it as say L. So the extension, so it means the extension is this, correct? This is our extension. How much is this extension? We call this as delta. How much is that? Now delta here is becoming equal to L minus L naught, and we can say that this force F is equal to some constant multiplied by this delta, and this constant K is termed as the spring constant. So it is called the spring constant, or sometimes known as the stiffness of the spring constant, or it is termed as the stiffness of the spring. Okay, now you have this kind of situation, or you can, depending upon your nature of force, you can have your spring this way, and in this will be the case when your force is basically acting this way, and therefore now the length of the spring will become now this much. So this is your length L, correct? This is your length L. And how much will be your compression now? So this will be your compression. This goes in this manner. So this length. So this will be your compression. How much is that compression? So you are getting, sorry, I showed it in a wrong manner. So this is your compression. So this is your delta. And how much is your delta now? So delta becomes equal to L naught minus L. And again, you are getting that your force F, that is equal to K into delta. That means had you gone for a plot, say you would have gone for a plot where along the y-axis we are going to plot the force on the spring, and on the x-axis we are going to plot the deflection of the spring delta. So this is F delta curve. In this case, this F delta curve for the spring, you will see that it will be a straight line going to the origin like this way. So that is actually called the linear spring, F equal to K into delta. And for the non-linear spring, of course, this curve will be looking like this. This one will be one type of curve. This one will be another type of curve. This is actually called as the softening spring. This one is called as the hardening spring. So these are actually the non-linear springs. Right now, we do not have to discuss them. So we see therefore that this is actually the force that is acting on the spring, right? It may extend or it may compress. Say if we show the compression also, then this straight line will be extended beyond this. So that will be your, this will be your full plot of this graph. This is the full plot of the graph for the linear spring. So this is, the spring law. This is called the law of spring. Now, if I particularly consider the situation where suppose we are taking a linear spring and show their plot, and say confine myself to the extension only, the same you can verify it for the compression also. So I just concentrate only on the extension part. So this will be your F delta curve. So this is 0, and let us consider that there is some amount of the extension. This is delta. Then because this this actually has some area under this curve. So this area, how much will be this area? If obviously you can see from here, this area can be expressed as like this. This is equal to half F into delta. So if this is delta and this is F, say this is F, then we see this is half F into delta. But since F is equal to K delta, I can write this expression as half K delta square, or I can write this as 1 by 2, the F square by K. 1 by 2 into F square by K, when you can replace delta as F by K or F equal to delta into K. So either way you can represent this. And this area actually defines this in language of calculus. Basically, you see this is integration F d delta. That means this is the area under this F versus delta curve. So this F d delta, this is actually representing the work done by the spring force. And this work done, that means when I deform the spring, either it is extended or it is compressed, we see that some amount of energy is being stored within the spring. And this energy we will call it to be the elastic potential energy and define it by the symbol VE. And the elastic potential energy is 0 when your L becomes equal to L0, where L is the current length of the spring. Correct? So that is how we can define this particular thing. Now let me see the case when we have to our body, we have some spring attached to it. Let us consider an example to understand what will be the work done by the force of a spring. Say this is a particle mass which is being attached on a frictionless surface like this. This is M. And we are trying to say give a positive displacement to this mass. Let's say this is your X. This is the displacement that you are going to give. Say this is the case when the spring is at its natural length. Now we are stretching it to a position. Say this particle is taken here at a distance x on the surface. So if we draw the free body diagram of this particle, this is the the free body diagram. We assume that there is no friction. So the only force that is acting on this body is, of course, because when you are pulling the mass, the spring is stretched. So on the spring, the force is acting towards right, but on the mass, the force will be acting towards left. So this force will be equal to how much? That will be equal to exactly equal to F, and that must be equal to K into, say, if this displacement is very small, let's say that displacement is F is equal to K into dx. So we write it in a decent manner. We say that there is some displacement dx towards right. So your F is equal to K into that amount. Say we say this is equal to, sorry, say at this position we call this is x. So let's say this force is kx. Now from this position, if I try to displace this particle further, and this further displacement we call it as dx, which is our ds basically, right? So it is at this stage. हाँ कुछ बोल रहे हैं? Hello?
No sir, बोला yes sir,
yes, okay. So this is the position x, and now from here I give a displacement, and that displacement we call it as dx, called ds. So how much will be then the work done by the spring force? So I can say that the work done, the differential work done, I can say differential work done by the spring force will be equal to what? We can say that will be equal to, we can write this is equal to dus or due, sorry, because it is the elastic work done. How much is this? This due will then become equal to kx in the negative direction, because your force is in this direction, and you remember your displacement is in this direction. So this is minus kx into dx. So you see, this is your work done. Now if you want to take it from position x1 to position x2, what will be the net work done? So you can therefore say 1u2e, the elastic component, that becomes equal to minus integration from x1 to x2. It is k into x into dx. Since your k is constant, the stiffness, I can say that this is minus k by 2 into x2 square minus x1 square. Or I can write it in this manner, or I can say that 1u2e, that is the work done by the elastic component of the spring, becomes equal to minus, I can say this is half k x2 square minus, I can say half k x1 square. Now you know this is what just now we have seen. This is my elastic potential energy. This is my elastic potential energy. This is what I get, correct? This is what I get. So from here, thus I can write this is minus of VE2 minus VE1. So ultimately what I see from here, ultimately we see that 1u2e is basically equal to negative of delta VE. So it shows therefore that this work done by the spring force is also equal to the negative of its change in potential energy. In fact, we have also derived this relationship in relation with your gravity force also. So see this equation, and see this equation. Both of them are having the same form. In fact, these two forces, I mean to say the gravity force and the spring force, they are termed as the conservative forces. This is a special type of force you have, conservative forces. Conservative forces are those whose work done does not depend upon the path being chosen. That means, for example, in case of this gravity example, if we would have taken this body in this path, correct, in the gravity, the work done would have been the same. Had I taken it in a different path like this, then also the work done would have been same. So it means that it is path independent case. So there are certain forces for which we have this property. That means the work done by such group of forces are not depending upon the path, and they come under the category of conservative forces. And we can mathematically prove that every conservative force is associated with some potential function. For example, the gravity force is associated with potential function Vg, that is mgh. Similarly, the spring force, another example of the conservative force, is associated with some potential function. So every conservative force has got some potential function, and the work done by such conservative forces will be the change of that potential function, negative change of that potential function. See, that's why this negative sign comes into the picture. So having therefore understood that we have the in the category of our free body diagram, you see that you have the chance of accommodating a spring. Therefore, say for example, let's take a very classical situation. We have a smooth guide. This is a smooth guide, no friction. Smooth guide is there. Smooth guide is there, and we have a ball being kept inside it. And directly to this ball, I attach some spring, and this is being, fixed to this support point. Now, suppose this ball, it needs to be moved from its initial position here. This was, say, its initial position, and this is it's going to be its final position. Suppose I at this position, right, always the spring will be connected like this to this particle, and this is a smooth guide. And suppose this initially is at condition of rest, what will be the velocity of this when I take it from this position to this position? So in doing so, you need to calculate the work done by the spring if you do not accommodate the spring into your system. What I mean to say is that, say at an intermediate position of this particle, as shown here, this is the intermediate position. If I draw the free body diagram, not free body diagram, sorry, active force diagram, I will find that within this, that there is a special, this spring force will be there if I do not take the spring within our system. So I need to carry out the integration, say I need to calculate the length of this spring here. Let us say this length is L. I need to know the uncompressed or original natural length of this spring, take this difference, equate it to be equal to delta, and then use it in the relation Fs equal to K into delta. And you can very easily see that it becomes basically function of the dynamic length of the spring. So as the particle moves from this position to this position, you need to calculate how your L is changing along the path, because otherwise you will not be able to actually calculate the work done by the spring force, because it requires the evaluation of Fs, integration Fs and Fs ds, and to know it, to do that integration, you must know how your length of the spring, dynamic length of the spring changes, or instantaneous length of the spring changes as you are taking this particle along this smooth guide. So you can jolly well understand that it becomes a difficult mathematical proposition. You require to perform some awkward integral. So in order to avoid this scenario, what I could do, I can alternatively take this spring also into my system and consider that my system consists of this mass and the spring itself. Right? I can do it in that way. If I do it, I will be having some advantage. What is the advantage? That I am going to tell you. Now see that we have so far, that come across that if in our particular case we have the gravity force and the spring force included into our system, we have their work done. So I just like to revise my work energy equation. So our work energy equation, you recall, it is 1U2 is equal to delta T. That is what we have seen in our initial discussion of our relationship. Or stated in the differential form, it was du equal to d of t. This is the relation we get. Now we take first this differential form and say that in this du, that is the work done by all the external forces, in that we may have the conservative forces called gravity and the force due to spring. So therefore, I break up this work function into three components. One is the work done by all non-gravity and non-spring forces. Let us call that as du tilde. Correct? Let us call that du tilde. This is what? This is the differential work done by all non-gravity or non-spring forces. To it we add the work done by the gravity forces, dug. To it we add the work done by the elastic component of forces. Then this must be the entire set, and as per our definition, this must be equal to dt. Now, further from our foregoing discussions, I can write that then du tilde, that is the work done, we can now write, this is the differential work done. We can say this is the differential work done by non-gravity, non-spring forces, non-gravity and non-spring forces, non-spring forces, or you can say the differential work done by all forces other than gravity and spring force. So I can say from here that we can say from here like this, that du tilde, now I apply the foregoing theorems, that this is equal to minus delta, we can write this minus dvg, right? And here we can write it to be minus dve, and this must be equal to dt. Or in other words, we can say du tilde, that means the work done by all other forces except that due to force due to gravity and that due to elastic forces, can be written as this is dt plus dvg plus dve. So you can take d of t plus vg plus ve. What it says? It says that it is the sum of the differential changes of kinetic energy, potential and gravitational potential energy, and the elastic potential energy. So this d of t plus vg plus ve, this actually, this is called the total mechanical energy. So we see that the work done by the non-gravity and the non-spring forces is basically equal to the differential change of the total mechanical energy. This is called total mechanical energy, sum of kinetic energy and the potential energy. And sometimes this is known as law of dynamical mechanical energy equation. Right? Now, in the differential form, if we integrate it, now what is the difference between these two? You see, in this format, your spring will not be as a part of your system. But when you write your differential work done from this to this, from this relation to this relation, it means that you have taken into consideration of the spring into your system. So you just say that you calculate the change of the total change of kinetic energy, gravitational potential energy and the elastic potential energy in doing this, calculating the work function. So if I integrate this relationship between the two finite positions, I can say 1 u tilde 2. That means the finite work done by the non-gravity and the non-spring forces is equal to the change in kinetic energy plus change in gravitational potential energy plus change in elastic potential energy. Or you can write this is change in T plus Vg plus Ve. Now it may so happen this is the integrated form. This is the integrated form of our energy equation. In fact, we will be using this equation only to solve our problem. Okay? So that means yes, that means we will take this spring, all springs, whatever is there, they are to be included into our system. Correct? So basically you have these two options, but we opt for this particular option. Now you may have a situation where you may not have any other force other than gravity and spring. That means all forces are only gravity and spring that is acting on your system. You may have it. So it means that you do not have any other force, and as a result you see this will be equal to 0 if you do not have any other spring force, or sorry, any other force other than the force due to gravity and the spring. So this result will be basically equal to 0. What it means is that it is delta of T plus 1 minute. Just a minute. So what we have, therefore, we can write this is delta of T plus Vg plus Ve. So it means that from here we can conclude that it means that your T plus Vg plus Ve is equal to constant. What it means is that this is known as law of conservation of energy. Law of conservation of energy, which states that if in your system, law of conservation of energy, it means that in your system, if you do not have any other force other than the force due to gravity and the spring, you see your total sum of the energy is going to be conserved, or it is going to be constant. It means the initial, so it means what? Your initial kinetic energy, gravitational potential energy, elastic potential energy must be equal to your final kinetic energy, final potential, gravitational potential energy, and final elastic potential energy. So we may have these situations. So please try to understand the difference between the two work energy relations. So this is the theory that is normally covered in our Merriam-Craig's second part of the chapter, but we will take these two chapters as a whole and take the problems in an integrated manner, and we'll stick to apply this particular equation. Let us end our today's class by taking a specific example, by taking an example, so to say. Say, let's go to a problem. Just discuss a problem. So let us consider, again, we need to choose very carefully the problem. So let's go and choose this problem number 3 by 109. Let's take, this way. So what we do, I just consider this 3 by 109 here and make it available to us. Yes. So this is where it is available to me. Okay. Say this is our problem. This is our first problem which we will take up today. We have this problem which says that the 2 kg collar, this is this collar, is released from the condition of rest at point A and slides down the inclined fixed rod in the vertical plane. So this is in vertical plane. So this you need to carefully read the sentences. If it is in horizontal plane, this will not be there. So this is in vertical plane. The coefficient of kinetic friction here is provided 0.4. Calculate the velocity of the collar as it strikes the spring. So just when it is going to strike the spring, what will be the velocity of the collar and the maximum deflection of the spring. So first let us try to address the first one, the velocity of the collar as it going to strike it. So for us, this is our initial condition. So I call this as our initial condition for the problem A, the question part A, and this is the final condition for problem A, the part A. So you see here it is coming and hitting it. So it means that your collar will come and just strike the spring. So the spring is not enacted right now. So this is the situation we have. Now, if I include this equation, we need to calculate, we identify that this is a work energy problem because we see all the forces here are constants and the answer, the unknown is the velocity. So ideal case of the work energy problem. So what I do therefore, I apply the equation 1u tilde 2 because I said that I am going to use this equation only. This is delta t plus delta Vg plus delta Ve here. Correct? Now, in the first part, you see your spring is not there. No spring. So, for the first part of the problem, I don't have any spring. So I revise my equation saying that it is only delta t plus delta Vg. And like to see any other force is there which is not due to active force. Please note, active force is there which is non-gravity, non-spring. I say yes. Why? Because if I draw the intermediate position of the collar here, say this is where I could draw the intermediate position of the collar. What I would find, I do not have to show the gravity force because here I have taken the gravity work done here into this part. So please don't get confused. So only active force diagram that I have is the spring, the force due to friction, which is acting in this manner. And what is the force due to friction here? Just see that the force due to friction Fk, that should be equal to mu k into n, n being the normal reaction. So it means that it is on the inclined plane. So you have the gravity components are acting like this only. These are your two gravity components. This is your n. This is not n. This is your n. This is the n. And the component, actually I should have drawn it in this way. I should have drawn it in this way. Please take the drawing in this manner. This is your mg, that means your 2 kg, 2 into 9.81, this is, you know, cos 60 degree is the component, and then you have, this is your normal force, capital N. So we know from here that the normal force is nothing but this one. So what you see, therefore, the force is 0.4 times 2 into 9.81 into cos 60 degree, or in other words, we can say this is 0.4 into 9.81, this much only. That means I think it is 0.3936. Maybe you should check whether it is correct or not. Just take, this is 9.81 multiplied by 0.4. The result will be, oh my god, sorry, it is 3.924. Sorry. So it is not correct. My guess is not correct. So this is 3.924 Newton. Please check the calculation.
Yes,
must check the calculation. So now I see this is the only non-conservative force which is acting into your system, and the friction force Fk is acting this way while your displacement is in this direction. So we can therefore say from here, that 1 U2 will be therefore is equal to how much? This is constant. So integration Fk ds, negative sign, that should be my 1 U bar, this thing, from position 1 to position 2. So if I measure our distances from position 1, then this 0.5 meter will be, so this will be 0 and this will be 0.5, correct? And since this is constant, so I can say this is minus 3.924 multiplied by, this is 0.5, because it is constant, correct? So integration, we do not have to perform any integration, so that will be my work done. And this must be equal to the change in kinetic energy. Okay, so change in kinetic energy will be what? It is half into 2 into V2 square, the velocity, minus, originally the velocity was 0 at that position, so I say this is 0 square, correct? And then we have, this is the kinetic energy change, right? T2 minus, that means I can write it this way. I can say this is T2 minus T1 plus, we can say this is Vg2 minus Vg1. Now in order to calculate this potential energy, I need to make certain assumptions. Which way I will take my reference frame? Anyway, suppose I go and take this as my reference. So this is my reference I am choosing. You can choose this point also as your reference. So since this is my reference, I see that here Vg equal to 0 and this is plus in the upside and down it is minus. Now since at this position, you see how much is the height? The height is this much. This is your height. This is your height. How much is this height? Now it is pretty obvious that this height is h. We can say this is 0.5 sine 60 degree. Right. Therefore, I take, therefore I take this as plus Vg2. Now I take this plus Vg2 as how much? Vg2 will be minus 2 into 9.81 into 0.5 sine 60 degree. Correct? That will be my Vg2 minus Vg1. What Vg1 I have chosen? I have chosen position 1 as my reference. This is position 1. This is, I take it to be reference. So it will be, the result will be 0. So I see from here, I have this equation from here. I can write then that this is equal to ultimately 2 gets cancelled. So V2 square, that will be equal to, you see this 0.5 and 2 will make 1, and I take this on this side, so it will become then 9.81 sine 60 degree, correct, minus it is 0.5 into this is 3.924. So from here I should be able to get my velocity. I mean to say the magnitude of the velocity. So what is the thing? It is coming out to be as 9.81 multiplied by 60 sin
1.337
হ্যাঁ আচ্ছা এক সেকেন্ড আমি করে নি হ্যাঁ ভালো ভেরি গুড তুমি বের করে রেখেছো আমি জাস্ট এটা বের করে নিচ্ছি 9.39 and I just check whether you are I am correct or not. Take the square root. কত বেরোচ্ছে বললে তুমি? So take the square, আমি ভুল করতে পারি কিন্তু এটাই আসছে তো? So the result becomes equal to 2 point, কারণ আমার ভীষণ ভুল হয়, 556 meter per second. So this is going to be my velocity just when the slider is coming and hitting the spring. So this gives me the answer for part A, and since we are already up by our timing, we stop here discussing this part, and when we come and meet in our next class, we will be solving the second part. And if you want, you can try also, just I discuss how to solve the second part for the maximum deflection of the spring. That means you now consider from here. You can consider from here or you can consider from here as well. Say you consider from here. You take this as your initial position and just take this, say this is representing the final configuration when your spring is compressed, the maximum compression. So this is your X max, you can say. This is X max, I can write. The maximum compression. So maximum compression means what? It is striking with this velocity, the velocity that we have computed. Now the spring acts and it ultimately makes this mass static, and then only your spring will be compressed. So at station 3, you must have your velocity to be equal to 0, because then further it will not be able to move and the spring will be maximally compressed. So now if you apply your work energy relationship between 2 and 3, so you can again say that the friction force is still acting over this distance. So you can say 1 u tilde 2 equal to delta t plus delta Vg plus delta Ve. Now your delta t will be, this is T3 minus T2, and T3 is 0 as I said because velocity is 0 here. So it is 0 minus T2, the T2 that we have already calculated the velocity over there. So I can therefore say that the work done, so you just take this at your home and try to solve it. I just write it here for part B. I say that it will be minus Fk into X max. That will be your 1 u tilde 2 u tilde 3, sorry, 2 u tilde 3. This is 2 u tilde 3. I can write this is 2 u tilde 3 is equal to delta t, that means 0 minus half 2 into this speed square, whatever speed we have calculated. So we can write this is V2. Put the magnitude V2 square, that is delta t. Delta Vg, again delta Vg, you can take this as your reference and can say that delta Vg will be minus your 2 into 9.81 into X sine 60 degree. That will be your delta Vg, because I take minus because I take this as our, this is where I take the reference. So it is minus, then we have plus delta Ve. So initially the spring was uncompressed at position 2. Now the spring is maximally compressed, so it is half K. K is being given 1.6 kilonewton per meter, means it is 1600 Newton per meter. So I can write it is half 1600 into x square, or you can say x max. So you write this is x max, this is x max square. So you see, every other thing is known to you. Every other thing is known to you. This is minus fk x max. Fk you know, that is 0.4. Yes, that already you know. So from this relationship, you are getting an equation of x max. So your only unknown is x max. Just find this x max from this relation and get your result. Let me check whether you are able to solve this problem at your home when we meet in the next class. Okay, so till then, now we stop here, and stop here at this point, and promise to meet in our next class to carry out our discussion further.